Hey everybody, today we are going to learn about ImageTrace. And ImageTrace and Livepaint and Illustrator are very cool tools to help speed up your workflow from traditional art to a actual piece of vector art in the digital realm. So we're going to go ahead and begin here, and what I've done is open up Illustrator and we're going to learn all sorts of different techniques. Now, with that said, I just want you guys to know that sometimes the traditional way of actually creating lines and drawing paths is a better way to go. The images I'm using here are chosen for very specific reasons. I can tell you this, all of them are very high detail images. We're going to be looking at the pixels, the resolution, and everything throughout this video. We're going to even open our image in Photoshop and we're going to see kind of what we can do with that. So let's get started here. We're going to open up a new artboard and we're going to go ahead and set everything to default, not touching a thing. And we're going to go ahead and hit OK. Now, to start with, we need to find a sketch. And as I mentioned, the sketches we use are very important. So to import a sketch or a raster image into the Illustrator artboard, we must place it. Your first inclination would be find an import button. You're going to see there is no import button. We're going to use place. And I already have some set up here. We're going to start with Mickey Mouse here. And Mickey Mouse is a high resolution image. And this image, you can see, is RGB, so it's raster. It's 1072 by 1303 in pixels. Okay, so that's big. The bigger the better in this case. Now, if you go higher than maybe 2000 by 3000, you may get a lag. And there's something else unique about this picture if we look at it real quick. You'll notice there's a lot of areas of white and dark. There's not a lot of gray values. This is a very good tip if you choose to use ImageTrace and Livepaint on your project coming up. So make sure if you do so, have very little detail in the shading. And I'm going to show you what some detailed drawings could do when you're dealing with Illustrator. So let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to go ahead and we're in the place menu. We're going to go ahead and place Mickey. We can set him as a template. We could replace another template. But we're going to just keep it as a link. Now this link means if you move it out of this folder, then you're in trouble. Then it won't load in Illustrator. So be sure you keep that in mind. It's kind of referencing that. So I'm going to hit place, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of scale Mickey to what I want. Now, just because he's in Illustrator, I could save this as an Illustrator file, and it is not vector yet. This is still a rastered image. Let's zoom in and see. How do we know it's raster? Well, we can see all these little pixels hiding everywhere for us. Well, we need to eliminate that. Now, the process of ImageTrace or Livetrace in earlier versions of Photoshop is actually relatively easy. The tricky part is tweaking all of the settings. Now, immediately, we could do this really fast. ImageTrace is actually right here. You can see ImageTrace. And we have a little drop-down menu with defaults and all that good stuff. But what we want to do is we want to do this the right way. So for our sake, we're going to go ahead and do Window, and we're going to find the ImageTrace window, and we're going to load that up. This gives us all of the same options as up here, but then some advanced options as well. Now with this loaded, I'm going to tell you right now, this picture is going to work splendidly. It's a very clean picture. All of the points are closed, meaning there's no gaps. Now if you see this little drop of water here, that's going to come back and bite us later. So we're going to have to kind of play with that to colorize it. But for now, we're good. So we're going to start by turning on preview. Now, by default, when I hit preview, you see it's running through the process. It looks pretty good. The important part is we want to keep as little paths and as little anchor points as possible. The important part behind that is the higher number these are, the more lag your machine's going to have. Now, that was just default black and white, limited palette, 128 threshold. That's one way. So I'm going to hit Command Z to go backwards, and you can see the difference in quality. Now it's back to raster, and I can do high fidelity photo. We're going to let that run through. Now you can see it's taking a little longer. It's looking in more detail. It's with a fine-tooth comb to kind of look what pixels are where and whatnot and how it can vectorize them. So let's see if there's any difference in the paths. We're going, and you can see there's a lot more anchor points, and it's a little smoother. So we have an option here. We have an option. I'm going to turn the preview button on to keep it the way it was, or go with this way. Now, I don't mind this. I actually think this is pretty cool right here. We got all the little pieces we need. If we want to add more threshold or less, we simply change it, and with preview checked, it will automatically give us different data, and it will kind of refine the drawing as we go. All right. Now that we have that going, what we're going to do is begin to kind of explore areas to Livetrace. So I can also do this ignore white. This is kind of an interesting one if you have some off-white in there. What that will do is actually cut back some of the imagery in there if you want to. I'm going to keep mine on because I want to paint some of the white areas. Now, right now it's vector. If I zoom in, you guys can see that. It's absolutely 100% vector. I have other options I can go through. I can set my result to show the outlines. I can set my result to just show the outlines without the result of the image, the source image, and I can even just show the source image itself, which I don't really like because it kind of defeats the purpose of experimenting. So I'm going to do tracing result. This is our result. And we're going to go up to here and hit expand, just like we normally would under object expand, but it's conveniently located right here. I'm not too sure why they don't have a button right here. What you can see is the difference here going on, but I really think adding the expand button on this menu would be awesome. I'm going to go up here and hit expand, and what you're going to see is we have all anchor points now. This is no longer a rasterized image. This is a vectorized image. We can hit our display tools, our direct selection tool, and we can start playing with some of the areas. So you can see everything is selectable. And they're all in little pieces. As long as there was no gaps, you can see here on the finger there was a gap there, those were kind of combined. You can select every single thing. The black outlines, you can select all sorts of stuff. Really cool. Alright, so we're going to keep that here for now. And before we get to painting, I want to show you what would happen with the sketch. So I'm going to do a new artboard, and I'm going to do File, Place once again, and I have this sketch I found of Batman. Now, it's a very, very nice sketch. The artist, obviously, who did it is very talented, but this will not work as well as the easy-looking sketch of Mickey. So let's go ahead and place Batman here. And let's run through the same process. So I'm going to expand this rastered image a little bit more. Got to get my direct select tool, move it to my selection tool, and I'm going to expand this up. Alright, here we go. Now, by default, if I just hit preview, you're going to see a huge difference. Okay, it's not working, right? So the next step we would do is say, okay, well, if that's not working, let's hit Command Z or Edit Undo. And we can go to High Fidelity Photo. Let's see what that does. Now again, this is the one that takes a while. It's not going to give us the same result. I want you to notice the change in value. Give it a few seconds here, and just when you think it's done, it keeps going. There we go. Alright, do you guys see the difference? Probably not. Let me zoom in and you're going to see it now. Ready? This is before, this is after. So all this shading is going to hurt our drawing. Alright, now we can add more paths. We can make this more detailed. Right now it has 44,000 anchor points. That's a stark difference from our Mickey Mouse that had, I believe, either 22 or even 2,000 it may have been. Let's give that a go, and that just tightens them up. Let's look at Mickey again here. Yeah, Mickey doesn't have as many here as Batman's going to have. We're going to go ahead and hit expand on Batman, and I'll show you why. That's a lot of points. You guys don't want to play with that. So I suggest you do your shading again. If you want to kind of mix and match, you do your outlines first, make them harsh, keep everything clean with pen, get your line quality that way, scan it in, and then go back on your drawing and continue to add outlines so you have at least that outline version ready. Alright, so this is our Batman one. We're going to reassess this one in a little bit here. Let's open one more file, and I'm going to do File OK. and I'm going to place a Batman file that I feel is better. So let's look at this. There's a very simplistic Batman. It doesn't mean you can't have shading, it's just you can't have it in your sketch if you want it to do this method. Let's go ahead and load that. So let's go to Bat. And this one's a little bigger than our artboard, but I'm going to leave it. No big deal. I do not want any of this text. The higher contrast, the better. This means I can just get rid of this text later, and let me show you why. Let's go ahead and hit preview here. This is going to keep it default here for our setting. And okay, let's look what we get. We lose some of the outlines. Now, I would personally just go back and draw those in, but for you guys, I'm going to go ahead and make this a high fidelity photo, and I'm going to let it run through its paces here. Okay, and this is going to take a few minutes. There's a lot of other elements it's tracing. It's tracing all of these little imagery here, and you can still see it's not as sharp as the original sketch. It's close, but it's not perfect. All right, so now that I have that, I could change my settings once more, and I can lower the corners or the paths, and that will make them sharper or less, more sharp, I should say, or less sharp. Run through that. I kind of like that a little more. And I'm going to hit expand once more. Okay, not too bad. We don't have a lot of dots. The cool thing we have now is this. If I get my direct selection tool, I can actually delete elements, one of which is the background. I can delete text, and now I just have Batman. So I'm going to scale him down with my selection tool. That's my black arrow or my V key. And we'll hang on for him for now. We're going to go ahead back and paint these, and I'm going to show you the different methods that you can do so with. All right, here we go. So those are R2. Now let's see an original sketch. So I'm going to go ahead and open one more new file. I promise this is the last one. And I'm going to place a sketch that I made. Came out of my sketchbook. So I have this girl here, and I'm going to pull her in. She's ridiculously high in DPI. If I go back to place real quick, I'll show you how high this is. This is like 2000 by 2000. It's a big image, trust me. So I believe it's 300 DPI. Now, if I just simply image trace this, it's going to say, whoa, 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 this thing is freaking massive. I can't do that. I can't trace it. Well, I'm going to just see what happens. We're going to let it run through its paces. And what we want to see is how the shading will react. There's not a lot of shading, but you can see I had some dirt or I had some scuff on or other pencil graphite on my hand that kind of got into the white areas. So what it's doing is actually tracing all of those little dirt pieces and dirt marks. So let's see. It's going to take a little bit here. So I'm going to stretch my talking for a little bit more. And, as you're doing this, you can, attempt to go back. It's not going to work. You can go surf the internet. That will work. Go find your next thing. Okay, so there you go. You can look at it and go, well, that didn't have much change. That looks pretty good. Wait till I expand it. Wow. All right. What you can see if I get my direct selection tool is I have a lot of little itty-bitty areas. And you're going to start noticing these once I scale this up. So let's get closer here. You can see those areas aren't as sharp as I'd like them. All right. So how do we solve that? Well, it's actually not too hard, but we're going to have to open up Photoshop for this. Now, we haven't really gone over Photoshop yet, but what we're going to do is very simple, I promise. So first I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go onto my desktop and open Photoshop. It's very similar in movement, and I want you to use this video to follow step by step with prepping your sketch. Now, the easiest way is don't be dirty. Don't smudge, don't shade, don't use your thumb to shade in things. Keep everything clean with maybe pen, ink, or a Sharpie, or even just a very darker pencil. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that image. And I have to find that image first. There it is. All right, I'm going to open her up, and I want to do a few things. I'm going to make some adjustments in Photoshop. And the adjustments I make, I'm going to do very, very simply. I'm going to teach you a lot better way to do adjustments as we move on. But what I'm going to do is I want to mess with something called levels, or Command L. And levels basically just describes the lights and the darks in a scene. So you can see if I pull one of these tabs, it darkens all the darks. If I pull the other tab, it lightens the lights. So what I want to do here is I want to pull as much as possible to attempt to get a nice in-between. Now, once I have that, I have more work to do. So I'm going to just hit OK here, and I'm going to go to my eraser tool. And once I have my eraser tool, I want to go ahead and I want to paint out the specific areas. Now, what we're going to do with this is we're going to go ahead, and I want to make sure this color is first. You can see if I have it switched. I'm going to hit this little arrow. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint away. Now, the eraser tool the shortcut is E on your keyboard, but it's a very, very clean tool. It's very, very useful, especially if you're doing a sketch like this, just to clean up some lines. My brush settings, which we'll learn about too, are right here, and we can change the hardness. We'll make it a hard brush and the size. And this way, we can go in and kind of erase some of the stuff we don't want. Now, this is a process at this point. Command-Z works the same, edit, undo if need be. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it the little faster way. Now, if you look at your keyboard and look at the letter P, I want you to go to the right of the letter P. And to the right of the letter P, you're going to notice bracket keys. And I want you to use those bracket keys to change the shape of your brush. Very, very simple stuff. And, you know, little hotkeys here and there do help the workflow process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, and I'm sitting here, and I'm going to do this all for you. If you want to fast forward through the video, if you already know how to do this, please go ahead and do so. If not, just watch how basically I trim away. Now sometimes I hit Control-Z. Other times I kind of go back in here and try to get as much of this scuff away as possible. Now, this isn't going to be a perfect ending. There will be some scuff here. There we go. That looks good. That looks good. Cut it down here. Okay, that's getting pretty good. All right, now that I have this, I got one more spot here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save it. And I'm going to save it as anything I want, really. And a JPEG is fine. I'm going to save it as a sketch, go back to Illustrator, run through the process again. And let's see if it helped. So now I have my sketch here, and this is the new one, I believe. You can tell the difference in darkness. And I'm going to load this in, and I'm going to do the same process. It's still too large, and that's just because I haven't changed the DPI. But I'm going to run through it, and hopefully I get less of those white points everywhere, the points that were in the face. So I'm going to run through this. And now I could hit ignore white, but I do want to paint the face eventually. So let it run through, and little shift. Let's hit expand, and let's see a little better. So at this point now I have a lot more manageable face sizes here and there. So I can highlight certain things, go in here, and I can even delete certain points. Can move things if I need to, all sorts of fun stuff. I'm going to delete around her head. These are points I don't need at all. I don't need this little point over here, so I'm going to delete it. Actually, we'll keep that because I'm going to try to paint her hair. But there you go. It's a little more manageable. All right. So at any point, again, I just highlight over and I see if I catch any of these little loose points. There we go. But now this is vector. All right. Now we got to color these things. Now this is a method that is really, really nice, and it accompanies ImageTrace, and it's called Livepaint. Now to get Livepaint to work, the first thing you need to do is expand it. If this isn't expanded, which we've already done, it doesn't have the dots and the fills, so to speak, it will not work. We're going to go to Object, Livepaint, Make, or I think that's Option Command X. So I'm going to hit that, and not a lot happens right now. And this is where most people get lost. They kind of go, okay, well, what's the next step? Well, what Livepaint just did is made it active to paint. It allowed us to selectively fill in the colors. Back in old school Microsoft Paint days, we would use like a paint bucket to fill in things. Well, this is kind of like it. Now, if I hit K on my keyboard, it's going to take me to the Livepaint tool. And if you've done every step I've done so far, what you're going to get is this kind of look, which is really actually kind of interesting. And what we have is the ability to start painting. Well, I have a little black box, so wherever I click, it's going to go black. Well, I don't want the color black. I want a different color. So I'm going to go to my swatches menu. You can also go to Window, Swatches, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to open up my swatches. Now, this is a limited palette. I'll have more in a second. I'll show you where. But let's just start by making the umbrella red. Now, you can immediately see, notice the little arrow, it's kind of pointing to 3 colors. I'm using my arrow keys, left, right, up, down. And what that does is really, it's pretty cool. It goes through. Everyone, I want you to look over here when I'm using my arrow keys. You see how it's moving them through? So now, if I want this, let's make this umbrella kind of this color. I don't want it kind of yellow. I'm picky with this. Green, maybe. There we go. I can make that umbrella green. Mickey Mouse famously has yellow shoes, so I'm going to go to my CMYK yellow, and I'm going to give him yellow shoes. Maybe I want a darker yellow. Well, how do I do that? Well, I can go to my color palette, and I can even select shades. If I do that, though, I just need to make sure that I still have Livepaint loaded. Let's see, what else can Mickey have? Well, Mickey has maybe a red jacket. Look at this. Look at all these different kind of options I have here to load. I have all these, and I can load more even too. You can simply go to color as well and select color. And that will allow me to go in and do that as well. So we have all these different variants and options, but the important thing is it's point and click. And it's really actually quite amazing how fast this can be changed. I just changed the color of red there so quickly. I'm going to make his kind of umbrella here black a little bit. And kind of go through and just make some colors. So how do I add more colors? Well, firstly, if I want a gradient, I can do that as well, which is really, really amazing. I can load it up over here. I can set it this way. But if I want to add a different color, I just go to this little itty-bitty area. And let me control zoom in here. It's a little hidden menu. And open Swatch Library, and I can load up anything you want. Maybe kids stuff. These are some pastels. If I like any of these and I really want to use them often, I can just grab them, drag them into my swatches, I kind of like those pastels, and click away, and then I'll have those as well. Then they'll be loaded up. So now what I can do is when I'm running through my Livepaint, just simply hit the down arrow or select one of the other ones, and it will go through the pastels I want. There, now it's loaded. So we'll give Mickey, I don't know, this kind of look watery. I don't want that. Maybe we want like blue pants. I know Mickey has black pants, but I'm just saying. Guy needs to change it up now and then. Okay, he has a red tongue. His jacket is way too red and it's bugging me. What else does he have? The bottom of the umbrella, that's an interesting one. Let's make it a darker green. Give it some start of a shading. And we'll make the umbrella handle, I believe that's his umbrella handle. We have this pith helmet. I don't really have a color that looks like a pith helmet, so let's go to my color picker. And I'm looking down here as I do it. I'm going to try to find maybe a pithy brown. Let's try that. Let's see. More of a yellow, but that works. And you guys kind of get the picture at this point, I hope. Now, Mickey Mouse's face is kind of tannish, so I'm going to go and attempt to find kind of a Mickey face color, which is not that. I can even double click here and I can kind of adjust my colors to figure out which one. Let's try that. Yeah, it's getting close to Mickey. Alrighty, guys. So what you've seen now is I'm clicking away here. I've just painted this really quickly. And it's very intuitive as well. At any point, I can just simply highlight it again, hit K on my keyboard, I can go back and edit this. And I can change this out to something a little more to my liking. I can make these red, I can change the shading, I have the ability to kind of coordinate him a little bit more. And I even have the ability, you saw me do it by accident there, to click on a stroke and change a whole stroke of the character, which is really cool as well. So, you guys can see the power of Livepaint. Well, we're not done yet. At this point, let's say you want to move just the color. Well, you can't. So, what I'm going to do is use my selection tool and delete some areas. And you can see if I move that out, it just duplicates the color. That's good and it's bad. If I want to remove that and maybe create a shadow or do something, it's not good. So what I need to do is select everything, and I need to do expand one more time. This converts the Livepaint groups into individual paths. Now, it doesn't look like much until you try to move it again, and now you have your shape. And this is really great, like if you wanted to make a shadow here, I'm going to hold the command key down here, and you can kind of adjust certain areas. Here we go, there's the command key. And I can make things a little darker, and we can start adding maybe some shading in here. All sorts of fun stuff that you guys can play around with, getting some dimension. Let me go Control-Z back here. So very, very cool stuff. Now, I'm pretty done with this one. I'm going to just keep this the way it is. Let's move on to our complex one. Now you guys can see why I didn't want all these points. I'm going to go ahead and hit K, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure I hit Object Make in the Livepaint Make. And I'm going to try to paint Batman, and it takes forever because it's loading all of those individual pieces, all of those little individual holes. It's loading up, and this actually may freeze, and that's just part of the game. That's just possibly going to happen. So what you want to do at this point is when you see it from the get-go, you see all of these holes, you just kind of want to take a step back and, you know, say, okay, maybe I need to refine this drawing. Again, do your shading elsewhere. Do your shading in Illustrator. Set up a custom brush. There's a lot you can do to kind of prevent an error like you're seeing right now happen. And that's just because right now, again, it has too many gaps. So I'm not going to even attempt to paint this. I'm going to just go ahead and hit delete. And we're going to kind of actually even close that one down because that one was so big. And let's hop to our other Batman. Let's see how much faster this one is. Object, Livepaint, Make. It's done, guys. It's already done. So now I hit K on my keyboard, and I can start by figuring out my Batman colors. Let's see, I want kind of a lighter gray there. My colors are way off today. Let's try this. Go through. Let's get the same color on him here. Cool. Batman's famous utility belt is yellow, so I'm going to go in there and make him yellow. You guys get the picture, right? Look how cool this is. Okay, I can't see it. What do I do? Zoom in, guys. Simple as that. Now you're going to see when I zoom in, I'm missing some areas. I have a lot of areas that are, you know, not done as well as I maybe thought. So I would probably go back to the Livetrace area before I kind of messed with this in general. But I can salvage a little of this right here. We'll just make it a little bit messy. I could clean this up beforehand. That's what I suggest you guys do. Overall, though, you can see the painting starts to come together. The cleaner the drawing, though, like Mickey here, the better the result. I mean, look at Mickey right now. Let's zoom in here. Look how sharp everything is on that. Zoomed way too far in. There he is. All right, now let's go to my drawing. Alrighty, we're going to go to my drawing here, and we're going to attempt to live paint it. It's a big drawing. It's a little bigger than the rest. Let's see if this works. We'll do Livepaint Make It's a complex artwork and it may be unresponsive. The system may break. At this point, you probably want to hit cancel. So this drawing was still too complex, mainly because I used a pencil. The way around this is just do it in pen. Very, very simple. Now, what you can see is if I go in and if I open, let's open one from another tutorial you guys had. Let's go to custom brushes maybe, and let's open the sketch. I've already sketched her out. I've already done it. And I can make anything into a Livepaint path. I simply grab an area, object, Livepaint, make, and it says attributes such as value will be lost. If I hit OK, it basically rasterizes it, but still gives me the ability to go in there and change it. And that's very, very important. You can see now I could go in and kind of adjust it. Now, that's a great thing, but the important part of this is everything needs to be closed. So what I'm doing is I just went Object Expand Appearance. What I'm doing is making these into shapes. And the ability to make these into shapes will begin to give me the ability to do some live paint. And then I can kind of grab the colors I want. Let's see, I just want one color here. And then paint away. Look at that. Pretty cool, right? So you can actually change drawings. Now, this is a complete circle. So let me show you more a breakdown of what I mean by that. If I have this, it still has a fill, everything still works, but if I try to live paint this, and I try to make it pink, let's hit K on my keyboard, it would work. But the best option is, if you have no fill, is to make sure these points are closed paths. And that's a very easy fix. When you do this, you simply get your pen tool and just make sure everything on your sketch is closed. And just by doing something like that, just by putting a bar in, it can make it a lot easier to change colors. Alright, so you guys can see how simply working with Livepaint can really, really change your workflow and, you know, switch up what you have. Alright? So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. This is a kind of a quick and dirty way to do Livetrace. And you've seen multiple different options, and you know the best option is going to be to do what you've seen on Mickey here. Now, one last thing we're going to do is we're actually going to shade a little bit. And shading is actually relatively easy. We're going to go to our layers and we're going to make a new layer. I lock the Mickey layer, and then I get my pen tool. And the cool thing about this is, let's say we want to put a shadow inside this umbrella. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a shape. You guys have used the pen tool. Hopefully you're getting familiar with it. It takes time. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. I'm holding the Option key as I work my way around here. And there we go. Change it here. Alright, so I make my shape, and I'm actually going to take this shape and I'm going to fill it with black, or a darker color. And what I can do now is actually pretty cool. I can go ahead, and it doesn't even have to be perfect. I want to show you this. I'm going to just move it over. There we go. Kind of overlapping them a little bit. All I can do now is go to Window, Transparency, and when that opens up, I get this really cool option. I get blending modes. Check this out. If I set this to multiply, it excludes all those black lines, so it kind of fixed the little error. Let me zoom in here and show you guys this. Let's close the ImageTrace menu down here. Peel off the thing here. Normal, it's a solid shape. Multiply, it has some transparency. And I'm going to lower this to 30%. And when I click away, now I have kind of a little shading in there. I can take this a step further. I can take that shading and I can do Effect, and I could do maybe a blur on it. So let's do Stylize. No, let's see. Where's my blur? Blur, Gaussian blur. Hit Preview. And hit OK. And now I have a soft shadow. So very, very cool, and it's still vector. Now if I want to highlight, I can do the same thing. So let's pretend maybe he's in Florida, so we all know the sun is usually shining. Let's do cool harsh shadow. Actually, no, I forgot to do my little technique I taught you guys there. And we'll set ours to screen. Screen is kind of cool because what screen does is it lightens the area. Now in this case, I just have to move it up, and I'd have to match it a little more to where my black line is, but still a heck of a lot better than doing the alternative. So very, very cool stuff. And that's basically your highlights and your shadows, guys. That's as easy as it is. When you have a shadow, you usually have a highlight. And for instance, you see on a lot of comics now, they'll go in and they'll highlight out maybe the corner of a face. They'll kind of go through like this and do this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be sloppy with this. I just want to show you guys, especially when I have a shadow, how easy this can be done. I'm going to go to my direct select tool, and I'm going to highlight this, and this is why I locked that other layer, so I'm not grabbing Mickey. And I'm going to go ahead and get my caret tool here. This is my buddy. I love this tool. Go back to direct select tool. There we go. Check that out. Multiply. Let's do 30%. Oh yeah, even less. Maybe like 10%. And now we can start building a shadow on Mickey's face. So there you go, guys. That's how you shade and you import a sketch. We've even used some Photoshop a little bit. I hope you guys have enjoyed the tutorial, and I will see you next time.